So while we're getting kind of settled into our new gym and trying to figure out the best way to shoot videos here, I thought it was time that we finally get around to something that we've been meaning to do for a while. Our first questions and comments episode. Hi, I'm Jonathon Sullivan and welcome back to Greysteel. I've been meaning to do a questions and comments type video for a long time, but I wasn't really quite sure how to shoot it or format it, and I thought about it a lot, and ultimately it seems like the kind of thing that you just do. So let's get to it. In response to our publication of the lecture I did on the Barbell Prescription Book Tour, Tony asks, are there relative contraindications to your prescription as there are with many prescriptive substances and interventions? How about pre-existing conditions like spine surgery, shoulder repairs, etc.? I am pondering adoption. Tony, this is a terrific question. I assume that you mean you're pondering adoption of a strength and conditioning program, as opposed to, say, a highway in the South, or a wolf cub in Yellowstone, or a Russian orphan. For the Barbell Prescription, we did in fact produce an appendix of contraindications to strength training. It was left out along with a number of other precious treasures for reasons of space. We are thinking of publishing it as a standalone article on the Starting Strength website or at the Greysteel blog. Many things that your mom, your yoga instructor, or your doctor might consider to be absolute contraindications to barbell-based strength training aren't. For example, chronic low back pain, osteoporosis, and the most common and widespread forms of cardiovascular disease, like hypertension, are not contraindications to strength training. They are, in fact, indications, reasons that you should train. Now, there are a few conditions that I consider to be absolute contraindications. Major vascular lesions like dissections and aneurysms, a history of atraumatic retinal hemorrhage, epilepsy, bone-on-bone arthritis, imperforate anus, but these are all relatively uncommon. I was discussing this a few years ago with a friend, colleague, and client, Kurt Dalkin, and he put it like this: if you have a close relationship with your vascular surgeon, you probably need to get the go-ahead from that guy before you lift weights. But aside from that, with very few exceptions, here's the bottom line. If you can lift weights, you should lift weights. And if the reason that you can't lift weights is correctable, well, get it corrected and then lift weights. We got some questions and comments on the first two installments of our hypertension series, but I wanted to focus on one in particular. Actually, about a dozen in particular. These episodes got spammed with posts like these. What do you think of treat your high blood pressure issue inherently using Hybetez remedy? I see lots of people keep on talking about Hybetez remedy. These super eloquent, almost poetic comments appeared under different names, probably bots, and while I removed them as fast as I could, I thought they were likely to keep coming. I don't want to disable comments on the video, so I just wanted to make sure that my viewers had clarity on this topic, to wit. Hybetez appears to be a mishmash of dietary and lifestyle advice, some of which is really okay, and some of which is pretty questionable.
Now here is some good news. What if I told you that a delicious banana split like this could actually help cure your high blood pressure? Well, it can.
As a physician, I've never heard of the Hybetez program, and there appears to be nothing in the peer-reviewed literature specifically about it. The spam and the website repeatedly promise a cure. That's right, a cure for high blood pressure and diabetes. There is no documentation of any experimental or clinical evidence for any such curative benefit of anything specifically called Hybetez anywhere in the peer-reviewed medical literature, or indeed for any therapy whatsoever.
We've also uncovered an amazing brown rice cure that can completely eliminate high blood pressure in as little as 7 days.
Now, this is just my personal opinion, but my personal opinion is that Hybetez, whatever it is, has the appearance of a scam designed to victimize and prey upon people with chronic health conditions. Even if some of the advice they're peddling, which is readily available in any doctor's office, is in fact beneficial, it doesn't change my initial value assessment, pending further data, that the people who are selling Hybetez, whatever the it may be, may just very well, deserve to rot in hell. Our episode on the sick aging phenotype drew this from Takatsu. I completely follow the exercise prescription. I follow RIP to get weightlifting instruction and run 30 miles per week, for example. Yeah, you're not following RIP on that 30 miles. And he's not following you. RIP don't run. Takatsu continues, but it is impossible to out-exercise a bad diet. Yeah, you're right. It's also impossible to out-diet a lack of exercise. And who is suggesting that we don't do both at the same time? Especially because training, as opposed to mere exercise, demands attention to a healthy diet. Here's a quote from somebody you may have heard of. Eating alone will not keep a man well. He must also take exercise, for food and exercise work together to produce health. In response to the Death by Protein Check episode, a viewer writes, higher protein intake levels may not be a problem. But aren't there legitimate concerns about the purity of some commercial protein powders, in that some brands have been shown to have elevated levels of heavy metals like cadmium, lead, and arsenic? Yep. The supplement industry is very poorly regulated in the United States, and so, as always, caveat emptor. In general, I'd steer clear of the product called muscle milk, which you may have also heard called metal milk. There are clean or relatively clean protein supplements available, and I've included some links for your reading in the doobly-doo. And of course, if you can get the protein that you need for training with minimal or no dietary supplementation, all the better. But it can be challenging. Warren, responding to our episode on eggs, writes, take 2 eggs, a 1/3 cup instant oatmeal, mix, cook in a frying pan, and you have a delicious, nutritious pancake. Good to hear from you, Warren. Yeah, I do something similar based on a recipe that we got from Greysteel athlete Shelly. I take a cup of egg substitute like egg beaters, a packet of unsweetened instant oatmeal, a scoop of whey powder, a couple of tablespoons of shredded unsweetened coconut, and a few chopped pecans, and mix it all up. Then fry it in a skillet with a thin spray of olive oil. Makes a delicious high-protein egg pancake snack. It's great for pre-workout, intra-workout, post-workout. You can eat it hot, cold, room temperature, whatever. It's amazing. Give it a try. In response to the episode, How We Age, a viewer writes, Sully, I'm 48. Video topic. Why don't I see older people in the gym? 40 and 50-year-olds, sure, but after that, not so many. And then if I do see older folks, they do very light weights, even for them, on machines. I want to lift with barbells into my 80s and beyond, if possible. What's my prognosis, Doc? Your prognosis, barring bad luck, is excellent. Check out our video on John C., a 91-year-old man who trains at Greysteel. John's up to a 150-pound squat and is closing in on a 170-pound deadlift. Check out our video on Ann, the 76-year-old Greysteel athlete who recently pulled a 200-pound deadlift PR in competition. It's been seen by more than 1.5 million people. And read this damn book that I wrote with Andy Baker. It's the why, what, and how of staying fit in your 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond. The reason that you don't see people training hard and heavy in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond isn't because they shouldn't, or necessarily even because they can't. It's because they don't. And the reasons for that are complex, but a big part of it is because they've been told that they shouldn't, or they can't. We're working really hard to change that. In response to that profile of 91-year-old Greysteel athlete John, Black Metal Strength writes, I notice you have tapered belts in your gym. Do you like those for a specific reason? My contention has always been that tapered belts are not as good as fixed width belts. The real problem with tapered belts isn't the taper, which is, the widening in the back, which is really just a waste of cow, right? The real problem with tapered belts is that tapered belts tend to be cheap belts, and cheap belts are cheap. They're usually not thick enough and don't offer as much support as higher quality belts. People do tend to bring in cheap tapered belts. A lot of our lifters have very nice belts from Rogue and Inzer and Best Belts, but they just don't leave them here in the gym like they do the tapered belts. Kind of like shoes. A lot of people, when they first start, just wear street shoes or tennis shoes or whatever until they start to realize the benefits of training and the weights start to get heavy, and they decide that they're finally going to go all in on this strength training thing. Then they invest in the shoes. Belts are kind of the same way. Our Olympic patrons, Laura and James Welcher, ask, what about training goals? Help or hindrance? Yeah, I think Laura and James enjoy hearing me wax philosophical, and they're throwing me a softball here. But here's the bottom line. Without a goal, there is no training. Let's review. Exercise is just physical activity. The goal is simply to get in a workout, or clean the basement, or walk the dog. The long-term objective is fuzzy at best, silly at worst, and at the very worst, the only real objective is to exploit you.
Going harder, faster. Your workout is finished. Here is some cab fare.
Oh, wow!
Now going to sleep mode. How about a quick workout?
A workout? What, right now?
Just a quickie. You can do it.
Training, on the other hand, is a very specific, very special form of exercise. It's all about goals. Training encompasses an explicit long-term program that rationally and systematically manipulates training variables over time for the progressive improvement of particular fitness attributes like strength, endurance, power, mobility, and so on. If you don't have specific performance or fitness goals, you can't define the program. So there is no training. There's just exercise, a thrash about.
You gotta get up and boogie with this, honey. Yeah. You gotta find that boogie body. Okay.
This is that time of year when people decide to set goals for themselves, including fitness goals. But fitness goals have to be specific and explicit, and so do the methods and approaches used to realize those goals. I hope that you'll take a look at the article on this topic that I recently published on PJ Media, linked down below in the doobly-doo. The good news is that if you set specific fitness goals and adopt a safe, sensible, rational program to pursue them, fitness goals are among the most achievable goals of all. Everybody responds to an appropriate training program. Everybody can improve their strength and power and endurance and mobility with a proper training program. And what's the proper training program for you? Well, at the risk of appearing hopelessly mercantile, it's in here. Thanks for watching our first Greysteel questions and comments episode. Remember, our content is provided for educational and infotainment purposes only and will never be offered as medical advice for any particular person, patient, disease, or condition. If you have specific questions about your health, you should work closely with your physician. Thanks to our Olympic patrons, Laura and James Welcher, and to all of our other patrons on Patreon who help to make this channel possible. A warm welcome to our newest patrons, Lars Bergstrom, Alex Wolfson, and Paul Fackler. And a big shout out to our newest power patrons, Emily and Diego, and Ann Buzard. If you'd like to help us make more videos, go to patreon.com/Greysteel. Or if you just want to learn more about healthy aging for free, go to youtube.com/Greysteel and subscribe to our channel. That really helps us out a lot too. Thanks again for watching. Until next time, stay strong and stay healthy.